I bought every Yeezy shoe currently available on Yeezy.com, one of which is the best value shoe I have seen in a long time, the $40 Yeezy Slide. Except they just released the second version of the Yeezy Slide, which is the first new slide design in 7 years. And whether this new slide is better or worse will be the real test for where this brand is actually heading. Kicking us off, we got the first ever Yeezy shoe as part of the new independent era for Yeezy brand. And of course, it wasn't quite a sneaker. It's a $20 sock shoe, which has a lot of similarities to a barefoot shoe. The reaction that people had when these first released was pretty much shock. Holy hell, this is a $20 Yeezy product, and what the hell even is this? Now, I actually did extensive testing on this pair of shoes when they first released. I hadn't actually at the time tried a pair of shoes like this before. I wore them for weeks on end every single day. To the gym, out and about, doing steps on my treadmill, shopping, even running, and obviously just day-to-day errands. And as a piece of footwear, I really remember myself being quite surprised at how much I actually liked these things. The freedom that it gave your feet because of the stretchy upper. Fact that they were $20. But it being so different from anything else that we had experienced from Yeezy brand, it kind of felt less of a practical offering from the brand and more of a stunt. And what's so interesting about this pair of shoes is that the story behind it kind of proves that. You see, Kanye spent years working with Balenciaga before all of this. While he was there, Balenciaga behind the scenes was working on a pair of shoes that looked, well, extremely similar to this, if not identical. The story goes that when Balenciaga publicly denounced their relationship with Kanye West and stopped working with him, he slid the design for this product in his back pocket and left.
I'm leaving here with something. I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something.
And just a short while later, he then decided to release these things for just $20. This was Kanye's way of telling the world about how luxury brands are essentially a scam. And what's funny is that Balenciaga went on to release that exact same pair of shoes for $1,000. What's even crazier is that I bought both of them and I compared them side by side, and it is pretty stark at how identical both of these products are, except one cost $20, the other $1,000. Make of that what you will. But overall, is the $20 Yeezy Pod Sock actually worth it? Well, honestly, for $20, it's really not the worst. I think it truly comes down to if you like the look of them. You can walk around in these things and genuinely get use out of them. But practically speaking, I found a lot of the different activities that I was doing, these ultimately felt best as just kind of house slippers, rather than a pair of shoes that you would wear on a daily basis. 6.5 out of 10. Now you would think after this, surely Yeezy would want to score some points with the public. I'm back, I'm still making sneakers and they're actually good, is what I would imagine Kanye West thinking at the time. But alas, what he actually did was release these things, the SL01. And shortly after the SL01, he then released the SL02, which is just too similar to justify another placement, so we're just gonna put them together. These two shoes are essentially a foam slipper, which is kind of what we all assume the naming to be, SL for slipper. And I guess the closest comparison to these things, historically speaking, from Yeezy brand would be the foam runner, but unlike those, these are completely devoid of design. Like, regardless of whether you liked the look of the Yeezy foam runner, you at least have to admit that there was a lot of thought and time and effort that went into the look of those things. These things, on the other hand, kind of look just like what Flint sprayed on his feet out of a can. They do crease easily, but the foam isn't that bad. It's relatively soft and they're not actually that uncomfortable. They feel decent. But you can't escape the fact that they literally look like foam blobs on your feet. And for $20, honestly, I would take the socks over these things. 4 out of 10. Next might be the most significant shoes that Yeezy has ever released, and that is the BL01. Not only is this an actual sneaker, but it's the first independent sneaker that Kanye West has ever made. We've seen him work with Nike, Adidas, Louis Vuitton, Bape, Reebok, but this was created entirely by him and his own brand, with no other company. Now, the name BL01 is from what the internet assumes is his album Bully, so the Bully sneaker. It's a laceless pair of shoes that has a lot in common with designs that we saw when he was working with Adidas. products, namely the 700 MNVN, I think is the closest comparison. It almost has an identical tongue, and following from what Kanye has said publicly, he hates laces, it makes sense that these don't have them. The general shape also feels pretty familiar to a lot of the designs that we've seen Kanye make in the past. It's made from fabric and rubber and mesh and all of the things that you would typically associate with a pair of shoes, not foam or anything like that. But these things retail for $80. And you know what? My initial reaction to these when I first got them was relatively positive. They're kind of comfortable and pretty simple. The issue is that up until the release of this pair of shoes, Yeezy's promise was radical affordability. For all of the products that they released at just $20, they don't really need to do much. They just need to exist. And everybody will say, well, they're just $20, you know, it's worth it. But the moment you step it up to $80, that changes. Now you are in the arena with real competition. And honestly, you can find some pretty good shoes for $80. You head to a Nike outlet and you will find so many amazing shoes at that price point or less. There's a ton of discounted shoes from Adidas, New Balance, all of the bigger, larger brands. And all of these brands have decades of footwear engineering behind them with the latest technology. And that's when you can no longer hide behind the price point. And as soon as you start comparing this pair of shoes to all of those, they don't really clear the bar. I mean, this shoe realistically would have to be so good that when you get it, you forget that discounted Nikes even exist. So the only way that this pair of shoes would actually be worth it is if you're a big Yeezy fan or you genuinely like the design and the way that these look. So with that in mind, I give the Bully sneaker a solid 6 out of 10. But this is where things take a turn for the worst. You see, if I bought all of these 8 shoes from Yeezy's website directly, it would have cost me just $390. But that is not what happened. This is the SL03 and it cost me $330. That's right, I had to resort to the aftermarket in order to get this pair of shoes for this video. However, I did actually buy the SL03 from Yeezy's website. I placed an order back in February of 2025. To this day, I still have not received them. And of course, I wouldn't even be mentioning this if this was just a niche case and it was only me. Unfortunately, every single person who ordered this pair of shoes had to wait an incredibly long time to receive them, if they received them at all. Many people are still waiting, like me, to this day. Now, there's a lot of weirdness with this pair of shoes because they also originally cost $20 and then randomly just shot up to $100, which is what they cost today. Regardless, I honestly don't think there's a single shoe on this planet that could live up to the expectation of something you would have to wait over a year for and then pay $330 for, so we're not going to judge these things off of that. If you bought these things for $100 off of Yeezy's website and they turned up in a timely manner, you know what? I think these are pretty good. They are very strange and very different to what I initially expected to receive. It's made out of rubber, which you are reminded of by the intoxicating smell as soon as you open the lid of the box. But there is also fabric and extra padding on the inside of this thing. You can kind of feel it acts like a tongue and an ankle area, which makes these things relatively comfortable. The rubber itself is also very soft, which means that you can actually move around and it doesn't stop your foot or ankle area from moving naturally. I think the closest comparison I can make to this rubber is like the inside of a bike's tire, you know, the inner tube. If you felt that material, that's pretty much what this feels like. They remind me of the Bottega Veneta puddle boots or Matthew Williams boots that he's got released. They're simple yet effective, and for $100, I don't think they're that bad at all. Now, don't get me wrong, this is definitely not a flawless product. They don't look like they're the most durable boots, even though there is a lot of rubber. The glue parts for the outsole seems like something that could potentially fail. Also, there's a lot of raw edges around that ankle area, which also seems like something that could tear over time. But they're waterproof and honestly not bad. 7.5 out of 10. But if you thought all of the shoes up until this point were pretty strange, well, this is the AQ01, and it is the strangest out of them all. Now, the theory is that AQ stands for aqua, meaning this is an aqua shoe, but Yeezy never gives an actual description for any of their products, so it's kind of hard to get a direct, like, theory on what this actually is intended for. In fact, I don't even really know what an aqua shoe is. Is that just something you wear when you go to the beach or something like that? Because this doesn't really scream to me like it would be for that purpose specifically. Regardless, after wearing these things around and testing them for a minute, the best idea I can give you on what this pair of shoes is a mixture between a barefoot shoe and a foam slip-on. They actually differ from the others pretty dramatically. They're made from a radically different material, which almost has a fabric liner to some extent. The foot shape itself is also very, very different. They almost seem slightly ergonomic. Somehow, despite being so incredibly simple, they kind of feel a little bit more premium than the other shoes that they offer, which is probably why they retail for $60 instead of $20. It's very soft, but it does feel slightly more like a rubber rather than a foam. Oh, and you also get this huge, thick insole, which is removable. I don't know if it's intended to be removed, but they're not very comfortable when you don't have this inside, and they kind of fold around like super easily, so you can tell how thin this material is. And you can tell when I pull that insole out, you can see it has a wider toe box, which really makes me think that they made these with the intended purpose of being very form-fitting. Surprisingly, these are very comfortable. With that insole that's super well padded, like, it's quite nice to wear. They actually have shape, whereas the foam blobs don't. They move with your foot quite nicely, again, which is where I draw the comparisons to a barefoot shoe. Now, I don't really think that it's going to be a pair of shoes that you'll want to wear every single day, but I was reaching for them more than I thought I would. But the best part about these things has to be the fact that they ship to me in 5 days. I know I stressed about long shipping times when it comes to the boots, but the reality is every single product on Yeezy's website takes months to ship out to customers. Until this pair of shoes released, and they stated on the website that it would ship out within 5 days, and it did. So in reality, it almost marks a new era for independent Yeezy, where they actually solved the shipping problem that has been plaguing this website and its customers since it started. But either way, the AQ01, 7.5 out of 10. Which brings us to the final comparison, the old versus the new Yeezy Slide. This is the YS01, which in every way is identical to the iconic Yeezy Slide that was released with Adidas. Same foam material, same design, everything except for the branding, because this is the only design that Kanye actually owned from his time with Adidas. Now, it is widely regarded as the most comfortable and overall best slide on the entire market. But is that still the case? Because the YS02 is the first new slide design from Yeezy brand in 7 years. And this isn't just some brand new design that popped up out of nowhere either. It's something Kanye has been working on for years in the background and was originally planned to be released with Adidas. There is plenty of pictures online of this being worked on in many different sample forms and Kanye wearing it himself. So theoretically, the YS02 should be an improvement from the original. Because if they're not, well, then the best thing on this entire Yeezy website is an old design that was made with Adidas. Well, in comparison, the new Yeezy Slide is now $10 more than this pair, retailing at $50. I'm not entirely sure why they're more expensive, but when these first released, everyone who ordered them got the wrong size delivered. And even more strange than that is that everybody who actually placed the order and received the wrong size then got an email from Yeezy saying that they can keep that pair and will send you the correct size. So essentially, everybody who ordered this pair got 2 for the price of 1. Now, this adds to a pretty long list of strange encounters that you'll have when interacting with the Yeezy website. But in the case of this pair, well, it turned out to be a pretty good thing. I mean, you buy one, get one free, am I right? The design of these is very minimal, but at the same time, still very Yeezy. I really like the simple look. In fact, I may even like it more than the original. You no longer have the toothed outsole that the originals had. Instead, you have a much more standard traction pattern built into the foam, and this means you no longer have the Squidward sound when you walk around like you did in these things, but you also won't have that additional softness, that feeling that these teeth provided. The footbed of these new slides is also thinner, meaning you get less foam underfoot. So with the fact that you're actually closer to the ground walking around in the new Yeezy Slides, they're also a lot wider as well. And this actually turned out to be an unexpected benefit of the new slides during testing. These new Yeezy Slides feel a lot more stable on foot. You feel more grounded and you have a little bit more room. Now, not that most people are going to be doing anything crazy in terms of activities in a pair of slides, but what I will say is that the original Yeezy Slides were slightly hazardous. I can't tell you the amount of times I've tripped on flat surfaces surfaces wearing these things and rolled my ankle, and that's just because of how soft this foam is and because of how much you have underfoot. And these new slides kind of mitigate all of that, which I do kind of like. Inside, built into the actual footbed, you also have a decent amount of arch support, which feels nice, but the foam itself is not as soft as the originals. Now, it is marginal, but using a durometer, which is a device measuring the softness of a material, you can see the difference. You can feel it on foot as well. It's not just that there's less foam, it's that it's slightly firmer in the new ones. And when you combine that foam softness with the tooth design that this pair had, it definitely still remains more comfortable than the second version. But what I will say is that I was far more impressed with these than I originally thought I would be. They're lightweight, stay on your foot really nicely when you're walking around. They're a simple design, very comfortable. So I'm gonna give the YSO2 a very impressive 9 out of 10. And the YSO1, well, they get a 9.5 out of 10. Which means the best thing on Yeezy.com right now is something that was created years ago with Adidas. The new ones came closer than I expected, but honestly, nothing on this Yeezy.com website compares to what Kanye did with Adidas. But the YSO2 does give me hope. It's a genuinely good pair of shoes. And when you couple that with the improvements that this website is having in terms of shipping times to customers, the expansion of multiple different items, including boots now, it keeps the door open for Yeezy to potentially become a leader in the footwear space once again. Right now, it remains to be seen, but after trying all of these shoes, it at the very least gives us a reason to pay attention. But footwear is only a fraction of the story. If you really want to find out if the new Yeezy brand is actually any good, check out this video where I compare every single era of Yeezy.